For this video, what I'm going to do is demonstrate how to set up my models which together make a seaside promenade. Now the location of the promenade is this is on part of my St Twynhill's route, but it's not actually where I'm going to have a promenade, so I'll not be saving this, but just to give you the name of the place so that you know where it is. So this is a little station, I forget which one it's based on, GWR station, but it's called St Petrox. There we are, based on an actual GWR station. You see it's just the basics, and I'm just going to use this area along here to demonstrate how to set up my promenade. So let's have a promenade at St Petrox. That's what we're going to do. So the first and most important aspect, as with any construction project of course, is to get the groundwork done. And the groundwork is absolutely crucial because trains uses an absolute height, uses a relative height, not an absolute height, for scenery items. So in other words, you raise the ground, the scenery item goes up. You lower it, the scenery item comes down. And that's true for all models. You can't just set them to an absolute height in the config or something like that. So what you have to do is make sure that the terrain, the ground, is going to be suitable before you start adding any scenery items whatsoever. And I'm going to do this fairly simply. I'm going to assume there's going to be a wide sandy beach here going down to you can see the sea here. And also what I'm going to do, and this is crucial, is I'm going to do it along this line here, or one of these lines along here, rather than across. Now if you can do it in any direction you like, it's just that you must make sure that you get everything at the correct height. So to prepare the ground, I've just got this set on to get the height of the ground, and you can see it's varying. It's at, what is it, just over 3 meters. Let's see where we go up to here. 3, 6. I'm looking top right over there. 5. Here we are. We've jumped up a bit. The ground's gone up 6, 5, 6. So let's just go back a little bit, and let's say that we want a decent drop for the promenade down to the beach, and so we say 6 meters is going to be our height. So we'll set that straight away at 6 meters, and I would reduce the radius quite a bit, right the way down. But so this is going to be 6 meters. There we are. Now take any spline, doesn't matter, just as long as it's one which you can use to alter the height of the terrain underneath it. And in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, if I can find it here, point where it's in here now. I remembered, because I started off by making these. There we are, promenade spline, but it's as if it's track. So I started off making these as a spline, which is what this is. This was the original, and then a series of buildable items, and then I started putting them into position and connecting them up with the spline, and it was like a roller coaster ride, because of course the buildable items moved up and down according to the terrain, and even when I went in and sort of fiddled about with the terrain, it still was an absolute mess, a nightmare. So you've got to accept that it's track, and it's going to be, so the promenade, Seaside Promenade, is a collection of track, which is just this one item here, and then fixed track items. Everything else is a fixed track item. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to run it right the way over. And we want a nice long promenade, don't we? I'll take it to there for the moment, and I want to set the spline heights to 6. There we are, 6 and 6. because we want a straight and level seaside promenade. That's the normal way in which these were laid out. So I take it all the way along here until it surfaces again. So we're still at 6, we should be. Okay, because whatever you do behind in the way of buildings or whatever, I might as well take this right the way along to where it stops being hidden by to where the terrain drops below 6. Ooh, that's a long way. There we are, look, it's reappeared. So let's dash over there, and on all of these items for the promenade pier, they are centered on this edge, more or less. There's a few inches in it. I've deliberately left it as a few inches, but they are centered so that they will set and the whole model then projects out towards the sea. So we can just see from the fence, look, or the railings, we're still there. Here it is. Yo, zoom along. Now this is all just preparation. This is not the final promenade. Okay. Eccoci là, as they say. And then we're going to quarry out the ground and pile up the ground, because that's quite a long, that's going to be quite a nice long promenade. But remember, if you're doing it across, or you know, at a slight angle to the grid, don't worry, just follow these same techniques. But I would suggest trying this out on a bit of terrain that you can just experiment with before going into where you want to place it finally. Okay, so there we are. Make sure that that's, there we are, and we've got ground coming up higher, which we'll deal with in due course. Don't worry about that, because obviously what you want is ground gently sloping down to the beach, or this is the beach and it gently slopes down, and any width, it doesn't matter. Nice wide beaches, and here look, a really shallow beach. Okay, so that then gives us our starting point. That means that all of this line here in the grid is set at 6 meters. So we will need this, so we just reduce it, get it out of the way, but leave it, some of it in position, just to remind us where we're actually building our promenade. And this movable, this spline, little twist round bends, is I've left it in. Originally I thought I might not keep it because it twisted around like a crazy snake and didn't give us a nice smooth promenade, but I'm thinking now I will release it with it is released with the rest of the items, because it's handy for going round corners, and I'll explain that in due course. Right, now we shift over to all of the items which are under, here we are, promenade. We've got lots and lots of promenade things. So the first thing we're going to do is, we're looking at the promenade like this, and we're going to be doing a lot of this of checking heights just to begin with. So we'll just check the height there all the way along here. It should have set, yes, so that's the one we did the spline on, but it's set, this one, at 6 meters high as well, and this one is, I was claiming that one's, sorry, I'm just, there we are, right button is what look, it's 5.89. Sorry, I was talking nonsense. 5.89, 5.89. Okay, so this is where we start doing some editing. Now the reason why I'm doing it this way is because by putting that track spline, the promenade spline along there, that made that height 6, and it raised these to just under that. But we want that behind the promenade, because the promenade's going to come here in this area, but we want that behind the promenade for a road, or and then some buildings, seaside terrace, that sort of thing, So we're going to use this to use that height and we're going to make sure. So this might seem like very tedious, very boring, but it's absolutely crucial for, I'm using the right button here now just to check each of those. See that one there, look, well, that one there, 599, so whatever I've done, there we are, 596. So I'm just doing it now, but we will do it as we go along. But this is just to get started. So we know that we've got 6 meter high in that area. We're not worrying about these bits yet, or down here. Making the promenade is a bit like actually building it. You've just got to be patient, and but once you've made it, that's it. It's there, and hopefully you'll enjoy it, and it'll make for a nice looking addition to your route. Okay, and I've chosen promenade end left, and there it is. Now you'll notice that although I clicked here, it extends out to here, and that's the whole point. So long as you make sure that when you add this item you're sitting on the correct height, then you can move it into position. And then what we'll do with the rest, you can see it makes it's going to look nice with the sand coming up to it. And if you really want to double check, there we are, the height, and it's that height measurement, that height adjustment thing which drove me crazy. So this is my solution to it. And now it's really a case of just deciding what you want on your promenade, and you very quickly acquire a sort of technique for laying out your promenade. You can sketch it out on paper or list it out on paper first, the different items. That might be an idea. Now this here, the red line, is because it's a piece of fixed track, and that's my invisible track marker. But the red line, I left it in because I thought it was really useful actually, because it gives you a good view of what you're going to do, of where to put things. And also the level of the promenade is 1 inch above 6 meters. I'm sorry there's a mix of meters, metric and imperial. That's just me. You're going to have to live with that. Okay, now what do we want? Well, let's have a lamp. Okay, promenade pier lamp. No, we don't want that, because that's a promenade pier. That's not a promenade. A promenade pier is something different. So let's come down with lamp. There we go. Now, really important. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong one there. So to add it, and I'm going to click somewhere up here, which I know is at 6 meters. So it's set back. Doesn't matter, because what we do, we bring it forward and it'll click into place. And I've got those rotating, or they're not rotating, they weren't rotating anymore, turned off. And in fact also, thanks to a great tip I was given on YouTube, interface settings, limit contextual information, there we go, I've ticked that to make sure that has actually reduced the number of those wretched the rotation was already turned off, but it just made a mess, I thought. Okay, so we've got a lamp, and we're going to have a lamp every what should we say, every 32 feet. So let's put another one in so that we got that one ready. And notice again, I'm actually add it by clicking somewhere in beyond this yellow line in there, so that we know it's at 6 meters, but it's not. Right, why not? So that we want at 6. Let's do 0.00 just to please it. Okay, and it actually jumped up there, look, you can see it go up. So now let's have a go at moving this back, see what height we've got. There we are, 6 meters. So that's what we want. So while we're at that, we might as well just go along and do a few more. Make sure they're all, they are, jumped up a little bit. And again. And again. And don't be tempted into trying measuring the ground height. Just go with that. Okay, so these are 8-foot sections with these lamps on. And we're going to have 32 feet between. So 4 8's 32, there you are. Even I can do that maths. So that will give you so that gives you 4 items to put in there. So what I'm going to do, just starting off, I'm going to put a bit of space. There we are, and I've got 4 straights, 8, 16, 32 and 64. So I'm going to put an 8-foot straight in and another one. Okay, and let's just double check. 6, 6, good. And that should click on there, which it does. And we'll click that one on there. And in fact, what we'll do is add another one. Make sure. And click that one on there. And we'll put something else in between. So what should we put in? Well, there's a number of items. I've done quite a few things, and I'm going to sort of build up to some of the items as we go along the promenade. Let's see. Well, let's put a seat in, a very simple promenade seat. There it is. And we've got a couple of guys there, and that's on an 8-foot section. And then we can bring this one over, and then let's just check again to make sure our height's correct. Yep. Okay. And the 2 guys, I've just I know they look like undertakers. Or policemen or whatever, Victorian. They're Victorian figures from John Whelan's Passenger set, which I like. But of course you can change them for anything you like. Now I've only referred to 2 attachment points to this seat in the config, but you can add further entries in the config, and of course put your own passengers in, seated figures in rather. Okay, so we know we've got a lamp, we've got 8 feet. So now we're gonna get another, because remember we're going to be very, very steady with our lamp. Here we are, 6. So we're going to put we've got some space on one side there, so we want to put in a couple of spaces here, one there and one there. Again, these are the 8-foot ones. Okay, and make sure we got the height. Now of course what I would stress is, as soon as you move this, if you don't move it and connect it up to that, if you move it down here, the height's going to change. There we are, 4.27, which is no good. Which is why you've just got to live with Surveyor's very, there we are, back up at 6 meters. I think very coarse very coarse arrangement of moving the terrain about. So we need something else in there, an 8-foot something. So there's an 8-foot something. It's a long seat, hasn't got any passengers on it, although there are passenger attachment points, so we can put a long seat there. In fact, what we can do now is make the long seat a regular feature between the lamps. There we go. And we just want another spacer, don't we? 8-foot spacer. Where are we? There it is. And click on. There we are. Keep checking that height. Right. Now this doesn't mean that once it's set like this, it ain't going to move, because you start mucking about with the terrain and it will go up and down like a yo-yo, and will, snake around the place, all over the place. So when you are building, you've got to build, and you've got to fix it in position like that. So we know we need another lamp. Well, let's have something a bit different. We need another lamp, but let's have a more of a display of a lamp. There we are, 3 lamps. Wow. So already our promenade is beginning to look rather nice. And then let's have another type of seat. There we are, that's a seat with a shelter. So that's given us 8 feet. We've got another 8 feet to go before we can get the next lamp, but we'll go with triple lamps from now on. So let's put an 8-foot one in and then find something else for 8 feet. Really, it's, you know, whatever you want to do. But you want to try and have some regularity about the whole thing. Remember, it's going to be built by some municipality, so there will be some degree of regularity. Okay, so here's another one, a little 8-foot section, which is got a telescope. There it is. So you can pay a penny and look out to sea. Thing about that is it's not the one which you may be familiar with seeing, the old one, which was like a sort of tube, and we don't need that one there. That was really from the very late 1930s, but most often in the 1950s, so it's later than I would want. So what I did is I looked around and I found that on the Eiffel Tower they have the original brass telescopes still preserved, it's still available for you to use. So I thought, well, they look much more like what I would like for my Victorian Edwardian style promenade. Now while we're just here, let's just have a look. We can look along, and we've got a variety of items there, and let's stick our 8-foot bit. There we are, and just peace of mind, check that. Okay, what should we put in now? Well, what about steps down onto the sands? So I've got steps. Here we go, and there they are, and they're quite big, look. Let's make sure we've got the height. Yeah, oh no, we haven't, look. 5.99, that's no good. So, stick those away for the moment. Back to our building work. Make sure our spline heights, rather the terrain heights, are correct. I'll stick up that a bit. Which one are we doing? I'm just running ahead a bit, just so that we get them done quicker. But like any building project, you're in this for the long haul. But I think it will make a really nice feature on any route. So let's try that and make sure that's 6. Yeah. Now here you'll see on the steps that they're buried into the sand, which is quite okay. And in fact, you can see there the top of one of the vertical posts and the top of another one there, which is buried in the sand. Well, that's just what happens, you know. So now we definitely need to put in some more 3 lamps. I'm trying to keep that pretty consistent all the way along. Okay. Try and get, I'm not even sure that that's the right distance. No, there's too big a gap there, so we've got an 8-foot bit in here, haven't we? So take it out, leave that along. There we are, that's better. Now we've got our 8-foot, and I've tried to keep the railings correct. I mean, it's at the bend that I found is the only one which is possibly needs to be removed, but the gap, I felt the gap between that one and that one was too great, so I decided just to leave that. Okay, so that steps down to the beach, and we've got a lamp in, and let's put in an amenity. So this is a newsstand. Just clicks in. That's another 8-footer. And if you zoom right in, you'll see the wee man, Albert Jones, the newsagent. And I put a Great Western poster on each side, because Great Western is the best railway ever, apart from the County Donegal and the Loch Swilly, and perhaps the Clocher Valley Railway. And anyway, and then there are some newspaper posters stuck around, newspaper boards, as well as newspapers on the top, and they are actual newspapers from the sort of 1910 to 1930 period. And I just made up the headlines, and you can go in and alter. It's under posters, .tga. You can make up your own, or edit mine. I don't mind. So there we are. Mahatma Gandhi visiting Britain, which he did several times. Heroic suffragettes freed at last. Well, that's really pre-First World War, and that's the good old Manchester Guardian. And then there's the Daily Mirror. Malcolm Campbell sets new world record. And Derby Day latest by the Sporting Life. But you can adjust those as you like. I don't mind. Okay, so we've got 8 foot. So before we put in the next set of 3 lamps, let's just make sure we've got those ready. Okay, let's find something else to put in. Yeah, so what I've decided for this particular promenade is a bit of civic pride, and showing how they're very much part of the alternative to going on to the continent. So I put a palm tree in, like at Torquay, and you can change the tree if you like. It's just an attachment. So if you fancy something a bit different, but make sure it's something that's a bit sort of seasidey. And I thought a palm tree would look really good. So I'm going to put that in just this side of a lamp every time. Let's have a look. 3 lamps. Remember that's our, and then we've got, what is it, 24 feet, something like that in between. So I'm now going to put the next tree in. There we are, and we'll click those together, and we'll just make sure we've got the right height. Yeah, actually what I might do is every other one. There'd be too many trees otherwise. Okay, so let's put a big shelter in. Now these shelters are modelled on actual structures, and they protrude down over the sand, and you'll see I've put in a couple of seated figures, okay, as before, and you can actually populate this. There's attachment points all the way around, but they're not in the config. You have to decide how many you want to enable by adding to the config. So all I'm going to do now is to continue to show you the stuff going in, the different options that you've got, but I'm not going to worry about now getting everything regular and in place in the plan. So my suggestion would be just to sit down and write out a list of what things you want and in what order, so that you can come up with a promenade which has regularity to it. You can see how those lamps are all at regular spaces, and the same would be true with the palm trees. But the newsagents and those sort of shelters and seats, they might be infrequent or random almost. So now I'm going to abandon that. I'm just going to show you the other items that are available. So we did steps down to the left, so let's do steps down to the right. Sounds a bit like, what was it in Raising Arizona? Turn to the right. Okay, so there we have, like here, but this time we've got them going in the other direction. And don't worry that everything's buried. or getting buried. Let's have our 3 lamps and check again that we're not drifting from our height. No, that all looks good. I think that's, how many is that in between? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure that that's right. 1, 2, then the steps. 1, 2. No, that's right. 1, 2, then the steps. Yeah, I'm just counting it using those uprights. So now you could put in another shelter, different type of shelter, which I've done, and I might make a few more. There we go. This again is modelled more or less on an actual shelter. I forget where now, but it's got a nice bit of cast iron fancy stuff, and there's a couple of bods sat there, so you can change those for whoever you like. And I'm just keeping the regularity of the lamps. Are we still okay? 6 meters, yeah, we're still okay. But before we go any further, I just want to make sure. And believe me, although this is a bit like my... Oh, is that the right one? No. Although this is a bit like my setting up my customizable signal boxes, where you have to take your time, the results are good, I think. They're prototypical. This is in front. This is still 6 meters, so, but that's just because this is so much. If we look along, the terrain actually gets higher, you know. So all of that lot's got to get lowered to make that a much more beach-like beach. So we can, you know, zoom along. Now I know it's all going in at 6 meters, it doesn't matter, it's just the first stage, because I would like to show you what my next move will be after I've got the whole of the promenade in place. So I'm just going to leave that now. Let's come round and see what other items that we can put in for our promenade. Well, I've got some ramps, so let's put a ramp in. So instead of steps down, you can put a ramp. Make sure that's set at 6. It should be. Everything else is here. Yeah. And we've got a ramp coming down from the left. Put some more lamps in. And then, oh, I don't know, maybe the council then decided, or the corporation decided, they wanted some nice foliage. And 3 lamps. So we're cracking on a bit there. And what else can I show you that I've got here? A telescope with a tree with, I call that a planter. With news agents, a lamp, telescope, steps. Oh, there's the ramps going the other, steps going the other way, and as we got there, going in each direction, and there's a ramp going the other way as well. And you'll also find that these shelters are available as separate items. Ooh, that doesn't look right, does it? No. 5.95. Goodness me, that won't do it. So let's take it to there. We're up to 6. That's good. Come on, click in. And the only thing I'm doing here, which is consistent with it's a single lamp. I want a triple lamp. But what's good is once you've done this, if you decide to go back and insert some other items, you know, you can do. Just chop out. Let's make sure what we've got there, and that's just going to be the end. Ah, there we are. And now let's have an ice cream parlour. Here we are. Make sure it's still at 6, yes. So that's Seamus Genesi. Ice creams. want just the one lamp, we want 3 lamps. And as separate items, I've modelled a little tricycle ice cream cart and a hand pushed ice cream cart as well. Also Seamus Genesi ice creams, so you can add those in. But I think you might be getting the idea now of what I'm aiming at. Now I know all this ground, all this terrain is far too high, so what I'm going to do now is just finish it off and then show you what I would do along the front here, because I'm not going to keep this. So let's put in I'll show you the other straights that are available. So that's a 16 foot and then a 32 foot. Just make sure we're still at 6. Yep. And even a 64 foot straight. So it's up to you what you want, how much you want to put into your design. There we are. Now I'm just bringing that down so that's flat, but it's going to be dropping down. And the last one really, I suppose, is going to be the end right. There we are, promenade end right. So as you're looking at it from the seaward side, it's on the right, and that's going to finish the promenade. Okay, right, so that's pretty straightforward. It's just a question of deciding what you want to have. I really like the palm trees. I think I would have a row of those, not just a couple. Okay, so here we've got some pretty good what looks like beach, which we can colour in with sand. So and that position there looks like a good one to me. So we'll just have a look and see what height we've got there. It's 3.54. Well, 3.85 there. Right. Go back here. 3.44. We're going to go with that. So now I'm going to carefully, I'm going to guess where that one is. Got it. And you've got to be patient doing this, because if you're not, you can louse the whole thing up very quickly. And you can see there's actually that turn there on the steps. Now obviously the longer the promenade, the more complex this job becomes. But like I keep saying, it's worth it. So let's try this height here, 2.52. So that's dropping down still, which is nice because that's what you want. You want a gentle slope on the beach, and this is going to be like sand piled up. 2.52, let's use that and let's go along. So although I'm making this quite uniform, if you actually look at most British beaches anyway, Irish beaches, there is a lot that, you know, the height this way, the lateral height, is pretty much uniform. Now you can see it's revealing those other bits of the items, really hacking into this piece here, into the ground. I'm just being a little bit cautious doing this along here, because if you make this radius of this too big, you can get into all sorts of problems. So I'm not going to touch that one yet. Okay. Now let's just look at what height we've got at the water's edge. 1.98. We'll go with that. Now I'm not going to worry about these other bits. I'm just going to, about being too careful. Ooh, we're below the height of the water. That's no good. Can that be right? That's 2. 2.13. Well, let's use 2.13. There we go. And obviously I've gone crazy with the putting the water in, so if we have a look in wireframe, yeah, you see the water goes right up to the edge there, so I'd need to take that back. Yeah, lapping around there. Okay, and let's just carve our way through this lot, bring it down. Actually, I'm being a bit cavalier there. Let's just bring the lot down. There we are. Gonna have a nice wide beach. We'll take that out. Always make that into a rocky outcrop or something at the end of the beach, of which there are plenty. Rocky outcrops. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is just rough work here, just to get it looking somewhat how I want it. But you can see here I'm gradually beginning to, there we go. But not something I'm going to be too worried about. This is going to be the beach, so just take it like that. Okay, and then once you have it like this, then of course you can bring in your textures and bring in the sand, and then bring in all sorts of things to put on the sand. But before I do that, I just want to show you one technique, which because you might like to have a long straight bit of promenade, which we've got here. Let's have a look and drop down nice and straight. That's what I like. Okay, and it's not up and down like a roller coaster or anything. It's driving me crazy, that was. Okay, so one of the other techniques, so let's go right over here. Now this is all set at 6. Now supposing I wanted my straight, I was coming along here with my nice long promenade, because a promenade is just that, it's for promenading, it's for walking along. So promenades are long, and that is too short, I think, for a promenade. I want that 3, 4, 5 times as long as a minimum for it to be called a promenade. So what you might like to do is a straight piece and then a bend and then another long straight piece going off at an angle, which is actually what is going to happen at St Twynels, because that's the way the terrain goes. So instead of having the end piece there, imagine that carries on all the way along here. Now I've lowered all this bit, and we have our, where are we, promenade pier lamp. 3 lamps, there we are. Let's stick that one in, and that should be at 6 feet. Yeah, because this is the spline. And let's say we have another, and it wants to go about 45 degrees, so let's stick in another one. Let's make sure that, yep, and we'll just rotate it. What have we got there? 45 degrees, there you go. That's what the corporation engineer decided was going to be the turn of the pier. Double check the height, and then we're going to pick up, and this is a good thing about that setting, is as soon as you do that, all the little circles start to appear again, and we'll connect that into there, and we'll connect that into there, and then we have an absolutely wacky curve. So we've obviously got to get that a bit better sorted. I would take that in quite a bit, quite tight, because remember there's only about 8 meters, or not a long gap between the I would adjust that until that spline looks about right. What I'm looking at is the distance between these uprights. There a little bit more there on that bit of spline, but so you can always open it a bit. There we are, to make it repeat again. And that gives you, let's check again, shall we? Yeah, 6 and 6. So that then gives you the bend in the promenade. And what you might like to do actually is let's make it a bit more complicated than that. So let's put in a, remember this is track, put in a, come on, oh, it's up here, isn't it? There we are. And let's where is it? Break that one. Let's split the spline. So a bit of a tongue twister. Splitting the spline. Okay. Oh dear, it's left a really problematic artifacts there. And let's put in another lamp. And this time, make sure it's at the correct height. Yes. And this time we're going to do it 22.5. In other words, half, or 22. There, that's close enough. And we'll put that in position. Remember, the pickup point is going to be right near that red line. Okay, and then if we jump back to here and we connect this spline to here, this spline to here, and then we just move this so that it looks, oh look at that, isn't that lovely? Who wouldn't want to walk along such a promenade? And there we are, that gives you a nice curve. And you could even curve it back the other way as well, of course. You could have it curving that way. Okay, so that is an introduction to what I will be releasing at the end of May, at the end of this month. So I'm seem to be doing a lot of videos at the moment, but I thought I would introduce you to the promenade. I've still got other models in mind that I want to make to add to this range, and I'll be doing that before I start then looking again at other signal boxes. And there will be some passengers on these long seats as well. I've got to put in, looking at it there, passengers already there. And these shelters, let me just show you. Shelter number 1, which is that round one, there we are, that's it as a separate item. And shelter number 2, and you can muck about with that, put those in any way you like, but if you want them on the promenade, these are the options to use with the base. And I think I've also got I'm certain I've got the news agents separate as well. Newcastle Newsstand, I've called it. There you go. There we are. And for the beach itself, once you've got all your sand in, I've got some, where is it? Under G, ooh. Lots of GWR, my goodness. Oh, there's the Genesi, there's the ice cream stand as a separate model. So that's going to be released as well. Ground frame. Was that under beach? I can't remember. Nope. Well, anyway, there's been some other models. There's a couple of groins to come in to trap the sand coming out from there, and then we've got some. I got that. Yeah, there's Genesi's tricycle selling ice cream, and also I think I've got a hand cart here somewhere. But those will all be listed out on the page when I come to release these at the end of this month, but I want the rest of this month for making some more items for this, so you just have to be patient. And as I say, and then after that probably more signal boxes, different regions, different companies. So there we are. I hope you find this interesting, and I hope when it comes out you download a lot and have great fun putting in telescopes and palm trees and triple lamps. I might do some other lamps as well. I'm tempted also, you know, to do the whole lot as well as a second set with different railings. Some of those really intricate cast iron Victorian railings, but I'll see how the mood takes me. But this is the first set, definitely. Almost the first set. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you find it of interest. I hope you consider downloading these freeware, of course, and you can you have my permission to adjust the newsagents posters. I'd rather you didn't alter that, the Genesi one, but you can add more people in and all the rest of it, and then try and populate it, try and find characters who can stroll along the promenade and enjoy the sea air, so that they do love to be beside the seaside. Okay, give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, leave any comments, queries, questions, and I'll aim to answer them.